The Biden administration levies more sanctions against Russia. The sanctions effectively stop Americans from doing business with the Russian central bank and freeze the bank's assets within the United States. This comes as Norway announces it is divesting its Russian assets that totaled over $2.8 billion at the end of 2021. And joining me now is Anthony Cannizzaro, Associate Professor of International Business at Catholic University of America. Tony, welcome back. Great to see you. Let's talk more about this recent decision by the Biden administration. Tell us, how will freezing out the central bank impact Russia's economy?
Well, so to understand what's happening, in the past few years leading up to this invasion, Russia has amassed over $600 billion in foreign reserves. When we say reserves, this could be foreign currency, highly liquid foreign securities, gold, and these reserves are intended to hedge this against the sanctions risk that Russia knew was going to follow when it engaged in the invasion. It works like this. Sanctions damage the Russian economy, which in turn will devalue the ruble. The central bank then uses the reserves to prop up the value of the ruble, dulling the bite. By preventing Russia's central bank from trading these reserves, there's now little they can do to prevent the ruble from going into free fall, and we've seen this. The ruble is now trading at record lows. I think it's less than a cent per dollar. And while Russia is a large exporter of petroleum, the Russian economy is highly import reliant on ordinary goods. So this is going to cause a lot of inflation for the regular Russian consumer.
You mentioned energy. I want to talk about that. As you know, Germany halted progress on Nord Stream 2. But how much of a hit is that going to be on Russia's economy? I know there's also Nord Stream 1 that's still sending a lot of natural gas into Germany.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This is really a very interesting turnaround for the German chancellor. Europe, as you know, is highly dependent on Russia for energy, and Russian natural gas in particular, especially for heating homes in the winter. It supplies about a third of Europe's natural gas. Nord Stream 2 expanded on the original Nord Stream pipeline. It was about an $11 billion project. So it's not going to stem sort of existing flows of natural gas to Europe. But what we're really talking about is in expediting Europe's transition off of Russian energy. Germany historically has been sort of one of the holdouts for transitioning away from Russian energy, while other European countries don't rely as much on Russia. Over half of German natural gas comes from Russia. So this is, you know, in the near term, maybe not as big of an issue, but sort of a sea change for the way that European energy is going to be working moving forward.
Yeah, I want to talk about here at home. President Biden has mentioned several times that we can expect to see really higher gas prices due to the conflict that we're seeing. I want to get your take on that. And also, what else do you think we should brace ourselves for here in the United States?
Yeah, so I think that's absolutely right. The U.S. consumes about 20 million barrels of oil a day. And while we're the largest exporter of oil in the world, we still only produce about half of that. So we're very sensitive to these sanctions on Russian oil. As many people know, Russia's primary export is oil. It represents about 12% of global trade in crude oil, or 2.3 million barrels a day. So we're definitely going to see upward pressure on prices. I was reading a JP Morgan analysis earlier this afternoon projecting that if we remove 2.3 million barrels, that's going to take us to about $150 a barrel. Some of this could probably be offset if U.S. shale producers brought online some of the capacity that went offline during the pandemic. And this could be bolstered further if the Biden administration started issuing permits for some existing sites, which it's been sitting on until now. Still, this would only bring a little bit of capacity on in the near term, not nearly enough to cover 2.3 million barrels a day.
You know, something else I want to talk about, we have less than a minute or so left, but the last time you and I talked, I know you discussed how the supply chain disruptions were impacting U.S. consumers. What type of impact do you think this crisis in Ukraine could have on things?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to see some inflationary pressures with what's happening in oil. But that's not the only commodity that we're seeing from that part of the world. Russia is the world's largest wheat exporter. Ukraine is also a significant exporter of wheat, corn, and other foodstuffs. Together, they produce nearly a quarter of all the world's wheat supply. The overall impact is going to be hard to gauge, but wheat futures have increased dramatically since this time last week, signifying that markets really expect some inflation in this area. So I think we're going to expect food prices to be going up.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for weighing in. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.